Here are the headlines for Wednesday morning, August 28, 2024. Quinn, countdown to 7 crisis, catastrophe, and collapse. The deep state's attempt to destroy the world rather than face consequences for their traitorous schemes will have catastrophic results. A Bob Dylan song from 1962, Let Me Die in My Footsteps, is hauntingly relevant today, warning of the dangers of war and the importance of standing up against tyranny. The lyrics convey a message that we must keep living our lives to the fullest, speak truth to power, and not cower in fear. Everyone will need to decide whether they are willing to die in their footsteps for a greater cause, which will determine the future course of history. Baltimore Schools Chief Executive Officer discusses why her husband has not punched out Fox reporter. Baltimore City Schools CEO Dr. Sandra Santelises joked that her husband hasn't physically assaulted investigative journalist Chris Pabst of Fox 45 News Project Baltimore, who has been exposing grade scandals and corruption within the school system for years. Despite a decline in student enrollment by 6,500 students, or about 8%, since Santelises took charge in the 2016-17 school year, the school system's budget has increased by $400 million. However, grade scores are declining, with only 26% of students scoring proficient on the state English test and a mere 8.8% testing proficient in math, placing city schools last in Maryland. Pabst's reporting has gained national attention, uncovering massive grade-changing scandals and raising questions about how the school system can spend taxpayer money while failing to improve student performance. Millennials begin influencing classic car auctions as baby boomers take a hit on old Packards. Baby boomers who own classic cars from the pre-1960s, such as Packards and Ford Thunderbirds, are struggling to sell them due to changing tastes among younger generations. Gen Xers and millennials prefer cars from the 1980s, 1990s, and 2000s, such as Porsche 911 turbos. Sales of classic cars at auctions have declined, with a 3% drop in total sales at Monterey Car Week. The sell-through rate for pre-1981 cars, priced at $1 million or more, was only 52% compared to 73% for newer vehicles. Data from the Supercar Index shows that sports cars from the 1980s through the 2000s have surged in value by over 60% since 2019, while classic Corvettes, Ferraris, and Jaguars have declined in value by 3%. New York State anesthesiologist pleads guilty to chloroforming assaulting kid's nanny while she slept. A 60-year-old New York State anesthesiologist, Paul Giacopelli, has pleaded guilty to drugging and sexually abusing his family's nanny while she was sleeping in his home. The victim would sometimes stay overnight at his house when watching his children so he could work at the hospital, during which time he would use sevoflurane, an anesthetic agent, to knock her out, and then assault her. Giacopelli confessed to having a chloroform fetish and also admitted to taking drugs, including fentanyl, from the hospital to his home. He is set to be sentenced on November 20th and is expected to receive 4 years in state prison for his crimes. Parents fight back with rising use of religious vaccine exemptions for their children. An increasing number of parents in the state of Maryland are choosing not to vaccinate their children due to religious exemptions, citing concerns over the rising number of government-mandated vaccinations. According to data from the Maryland Department of Health, more than 10,000 kindergartners have attended public and private schools without vaccination records since 2002. The trend has been on the rise in recent years, with a notable surge after draconian requirements were pushed by an overreaching government during the COVID era. Experts suggest that this may point to increasing rates of vaccine hesitancy among families, which has become a polarized and politicized topic. Records issues avalanche warning. The stock market is in a bubble, driven by the performance of just a few large cap stocks, including Nvidia. The company's valuation is extremely high, with a price-to-earnings ratio of 75, and its CEO and CFO have been selling hundreds of millions of dollars worth of shares. There are 5 major reasons why Nvidia stock is about to decline sharply, including the fact that demand for its chips has peaked and is shifting to other manufacturers. The company's reliance on artificial intelligence chips has made it vulnerable to changes in the market, and investors are likely to be disappointed by upcoming earnings reports. A potential crash in Nvidia stock could trigger a broader market downturn, with losses of 30% or more possible among tech stocks. French left calls for mass protest against Macron after he blocks his choice for French Prime Minister. France's President Emmanuel Macron has been accused of election theft by leftist parties after he rejected the Nouveau Front Populaire's proposed candidate for Prime Minister, despite the left-wing coalition winning the most seats in a snap parliamentary contest. The decision sparked outrage among leftist leaders, who condemned Macron's dismissal of a leftist government as a coup and urged mass protests against his administration. The left-wing parties called for a large demonstration on September 7th and expressed hope that other opposition forces would join the call to defend democracy against what they see as Macron's authoritarian tendencies. California votes to approve $150,000 in taxpayer-funded home loans for illegal aliens. The California State Senate has passed a bill that allows illegal aliens to apply for up to $150,000 in taxpayer-funded loans to purchase new homes. The bill, known as the California Dream for All Act, provides 20% in down payment assistance for first-time homebuyers who meet certain income requirements and have either a taxpayer identification number or a social security number or a social security number. Democrats in the state have defended the bill, arguing that it promotes equality and gives illegal aliens the same opportunities as American citizens. Older office towers in cities face a tsunami of trouble. Commercial real estate market challenges are severe for older office towers in downtown metro areas, with elevated vacancy rates persisting due to the trend of remote work. The mismatch between funding needs and available credit has intensified the strain on building owners. Data from MSCI shows that office values in metropolitan areas have crashed 52% from their highs, with some of the worst declines occurring in San Francisco, Manhattan, Washington, and Boston. Between 2019 and 2023, approximately $557 billion of value evaporated from United States offices due to a multi-year slide in demand. Special counsel Smith files superseding indictment in Trump federal election case. Special counsel Jack Smith has filed an updated indictment against former President Donald Trump in Washington following the Supreme Court's ruling that he enjoyed some presidential immunity from criminal prosecution. The new indictment narrows the allegations against Trump by removing claims involving his interactions with the Department of Justice, but still contains 4 charges against him. A majority of the Supreme Court held that presidents enjoy several tiers of immunity from prosecution, including absolute immunity for acts within their constitutional authority and a presumption of immunity for official acts. The case will now proceed to Judge Tanya Chutkan's court, where she will determine which charges should be dropped or maintained in the indictment. Experts predict the prosecution will extend past the election, and if Trump wins the presidency, he is expected to withdraw the case. Trump lawyers urge appeals court to disqualify district attorney over speech at Atlanta church. Former President Donald Trump's lawyers have filed a court document against Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis in the Georgia Court of Appeals, arguing that she should be removed from the case due to a severe violation of the state's legal guidelines. The filing claims that Willis' comments at a church in January were designed to increase public condemnation of Trump and other co-defendants, which is a violation of the Georgia rules of professional conduct. The lawyers argue that her speech was an attack on the defense and that she should be disqualified from the case as a result. The 8 oldest people in the world are all women. The world's oldest man, John Alfred Tinniswood, is celebrating his 112th birthday at a care home in Merseyside, United Kingdom. He attributes his long life to luck and has no specific diet, but enjoys eating fish and chips on Fridays. Interestingly, the 8 oldest people in the world are all women, with Tomiko Itoka of Japan being the oldest at 116 years and 95 days. Some super centenarians share their secrets for living a long life, such as Emma Moreno, who lived to be 117 years old and believed that her longevity was due to leaving her husband in 1938 and eating raw eggs and minced meat daily. Celsius distributes $2.5 billion to 251,000 creditors amid bankruptcy proceedings. Celsius, a bankrupt cryptocurrency lender, has repaid approximately $2,530 million to 251,000 creditors as part of its bankruptcy proceedings, representing about 84% of the $3 billion owed to over 375,000 creditors. The repayments are part of the long-awaited bankruptcy process that began in July 2022, after Celsius paused user withdrawals and eventually filed for bankruptcy. Not all creditors have claimed their funds, with around 121,000 creditors still waiting, including 64,000 with less than $100 worth of cryptocurrency out to them. All you need to know about NVIDIA's earnings from Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan traders. NVID, IA stock, is currently trading at approximately $125 per share, with positioning feeling slightly less crowded compared to the last time it was at this price in June. According to Goldman trader John Flood, positioning is an 8.5 out of 10, which is a slight decrease from the 9+ rating it had prior. Similarly, JPM Morgan tech specialist Josh Mayers rates positioning at 8 out of 10. World Health Organization launches global monkeypox strategy, including strategic vaccinations. The World Health Organization is launching a global strategy to halt the transmission of mpox, formerly known as monkeypox, through a 6-month strategic vaccination campaign that will receive $135 million in funding. The plan aims to implement comprehensive surveillance, prevention, readiness, and response strategies, advance research and equitable access to medical countermeasures like diagnostic tests and vaccines, minimize animal-to-human transmission, and empower communities to participate in outbreak prevention and control. A subvariant of the virus has caused global concern due to its ease of spread through close contact. This is not capitalism. Pro-capitalist thinkers often point to the United States as an example of capitalism in action, but this claim is overstated. In reality, the U.S. has a system that can be described as corporatism or fascism, where state power works closely with dominant industries to stifle competition and commercial freedom. The government exercises significant control over businesses through 420+ agencies, imposing compliance costs and creating uncertainty about the rules of the game. Even marketing, which was once a revolutionary tool for resource allocation, has been corrupted to serve the interests of those in power. Authentic property rights are also weaker than ever, with landlords unable to evict tenants and small businesses forced to close on the whim of public health authorities, as seen during COVID lockdown. Kamala Harris grants joint interview with Tim Walz to leftist CNN anchor Dana Bash. Vice President Kamala Harris will participate in an interview on CNN with left-leaning anchor Dana Bash, roughly 39 days after President Joe Biden exited the 2024 presidential race and endorsed Harris as his successor. The pre-taped interview, which will also feature Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, is expected to be a soft landing for Harris, who has avoided major media interaction since announcing her presidential bid. Critics have pointed out Bash's leftist bias and questioned whether she will challenge Harris on her frequent flip-flopping or clarify which policies she currently supports. Drone strike hits Russian oil depot, which lies at a record 1,500 kilometers from Ukraine. Ukrainian drone strikes have damaged and set alight several Russian oil depots and energy facilities, with one notable location deep within Russian territory, in the town of Kotelnich, Kirov Oblast, over 1,500 kilometers northeast of the border with Ukraine. The attack on the Zenit oil facility caused a blaze, but no casualties were reported. Other drone attacks occurred overnight, including shootdowns of 8 drones over Voronezh Oblast and 4 over Rostov Oblast, as well as a depot in Rostov's Kamensky district that was struck and caught fire. This is one of the deepest drone strikes into Russia during the war, with some attributing Ukraine's success to the help of North Atlantic Treaty Organization advisors and technology. Martin Shkreli must give up copies of one-off Wu-Tang album, Judge Orders. Martin Shkreli, also known as Pharma Bro, has been ordered by a New York federal judge to hand over any digital copies of the Wu-Tang Clan album, Once Upon a Time in Shaolin. The album is a one-of-one physical copy that was purchased by the decentralized autonomous organization Pleasure DAO for $4,750,000 in 2021. Shkreli had previously owned the album, but it was seized by the Justice Department after his conviction for securities fraud in 2018. Pleasure DAO is selling partial ownership of the album via non-fungible tokens, and has alleged that Shkreli kept digital copies of the album, which he played on multiple live streams, causing significant monetary harm to the group. Escobar, Euro to Telegram, we're coming to get you. France's relentless pursuit of Pavel Durov, the founder of Telegram, is driven by its desperation to gain access to everything online without legal documentation. The European Union wants what the United States already has: unlimited surveillance capabilities. Nikolai Durov, Pavel's ultra-discreet brother and math mastermind behind Telegram, holds the encryption keys that France so desperately seeks. The French bureaucracy will stop at nothing to suppress any means of bypassing censorship and surveillance, even if it means breaking Pavel to influence Nikolai into handing over those fabled keys. Series of United States-China cloak and dagger summits led to this week's Sullivan trip to Beijing. The Biden administration's national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, is meeting with China's senior foreign policy official, Wang Yi, in Beijing to discuss ways to balance relations between the two countries. The talks aim to restore positive communications, which broke down in 2022 and 2023 and prevent recent years of antagonism from veering into conflict. Key issues on the agenda include expansion and normalization of military-to-military talks, efforts at deconfliction in the Taiwan Strait, and discussion of Washington's desire for China to crack down on the development and distribution of fentanyl. Additionally, China is expected to express concerns about United States tariffs, particularly those targeting Chinese chip makers. Zelensky hails successful test of first Ukraine-made ballistic missile. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced that his country has successfully tested its first domestically produced ballistic missile, marking a significant achievement in Ukraine's efforts to develop its own military-industrial capabilities. Despite facing heavy Russian bombardment, which has targeted energy infrastructure and caused nationwide blackouts, Ukraine has continued to make advances in its domestic defense production. The development of the ballistic missile is part of Ukraine's ZBROYARIERI initiative, which aims to establish a robust domestic weapons manufacturing capability with Western funding and support. Americans are least loyal to their car manufacturers. A recent survey by Statista Consumer Insights found that almost half of Americans are likely or very likely to change their car make on the next possible occasion, while consumers appear more loyal to their primary bank, smartphone brand, mobile carrier, home and car insurance, as well as internet provider. The internet provider was the least likely to be changed, with only 27% saying they were likely to make a switch when it was next possible. Despite this, 86% of respondents said they were satisfied or very satisfied with their car make, indicating that switching car makers has less to do with dissatisfaction and more with trying new types of cars. Abbott says Texas has purged over 1 million ineligible voters. Texas Governor Greg Abbott announced that the state had removed over 1 million voters from its registration rolls, citing a legal requirement to review voter rolls and remove ineligible voters. The purge includes 457,000 people who died and 463,000 people on the state's suspense list. Additionally, 6,500 non-citizens were removed, including 1,930 with a voting history, whose records will be sent to the Attorney General's office for investigation and potential prosecution. Warren Buffett continues dumping Bank of America shares. Warren Buffett's company, Berkshire Hathaway, is selling its shares of Bank of America at an alarming rate, shedding nearly 13% of its stake in the bank over the past 6 weeks. The massive sell-off has generated approximately $5.4 billion in proceeds, with the most recent sale netting around $982 million. Despite still being the largest stockholder, Berkshire's position size has fallen to early 2019 levels, sparking speculation that Buffett is preparing for a downturn in the United States economy. Additionally, Berkshire has halved its Apple holdings and amassed a record amount of cash, further fueling concerns about the market's future performance. Top defense firms set for another record cash flow year as wars rage in Ukraine, Gaza, Lebanon. Top weapon manufacturers are expected to experience record cash flow in the coming years due to ongoing wars in Ukraine and the Middle East. According to Vertical Research Partners, the leading 15 defense contractors will generate free cash flow of $52 billion by 2026, with the top 5 United States defense contractors accounting for $26 billion of that amount. This represents a significant increase from 2021 numbers, driven in part by surging global military spending and conflict. The White House is driving a worldwide arms race, with the United States military budget roughly equal to the combined budgets of the next 10 countries, and has funneled billions of dollars in weapons to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan, contributing to massive wars in Ukraine, Gaza, and Lebanon. Recent events prove Western nations are highly vulnerable to cyber calamity. A potential cyber attack could cause widespread disruption in the United States, including shutdowns of internet traffic, financial collapse, and panic among 70% of the population who are unprepared for such an event. In anticipation of this threat, individuals can take practical steps to protect themselves and their families by stockpiling necessities, storing important data offline, and learning basic skills like ham radio communication. Additionally, exterior hard drives can be used to clone computer data, and completely offline devices can be built as a secure alternative. Preparation for chaos and violence is essential in the face of such a threat, which could render cellular networks, email, and social media useless. New management won't fix a broken Ivy League business model. Ivy League presidents continue to resign in response to public criticism, but this trend does not necessarily signal a significant change in the university's broken business models. The Ivy League institutions have been plagued by moral relativism, declining intellectual diversity, and a lack of commitment to First Amendment principles. Despite the removal of several presidents, there has been little to no substantive change at these universities. The focus should shift from targeting university leadership to addressing the underlying issues with the higher education business model, which prioritizes profit over providing students with well-rounded educations and preparing them for citizenship. European Union urges polio ceasefire in Gaza as World Health Organization seeks to vaccinate 640,000 Palestinian children. The Gaza Health Ministry reported an outbreak of polio in the Gaza Strip, 25 years after the virus was eradicated there, with an unvaccinated 10-month-old infant testing positive for the type 2 polio virus and reportedly being paralyzed. European Union Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell warned that the spread of polio threatens all children in Gaza and called for an urgent 3-day humanitarian ceasefire to enable vaccination effort. The United Nations, World Health Organization, and UNICEF have delivered over 1.2 million doses of polio vaccine to Gaza, with plans to inoculate more than 640,000 Palestinian children. But the campaign faces challenges due to ongoing fighting in the area. Gold bull run losing its shine. The price of gold is not increasing as expected, despite the long-term trend remaining intact. The metal's inability to trade above its upper short-term trend line suggests fading momentum. For gold prices to rise significantly, they need to break through this trend line convincingly. Futures flat with markets on edge ahead of Nvidia earnings. Nvidia's share price is up 159% on a year-to-date basis, making it the top performer in the entire Standard & Poor's 500 index, and has risen by over 1,000% since its low in October 2022. The Philadelphia Semiconductor Index rose 1.10% ahead of Nvidia's results release, while the Mag 7 saw a modest decline overall minus 0.30% given losses from Tesla and Amazon. Small cap stocks also struggled, with the Russell 2000 down minus 0.67%. Australia's latest consumer price index data for July showed inflation falling to plus 3.5%, which was slightly stronger than expected, causing markets to dial back their expectations for rate cuts slightly. Equities edge higher. United States dollar gains and Australian dollar fares better post-consumer price index. Focus today is on NVIDIA earning. Subscribe to News Squawk's free pre-market movers reports, listen to their Market Open podcast, or trial their premium real-time audio News Squawk box for 7 days to stay informed about global events and financial market. Notable headlines include Middle East and Russia-Ukraine updates, as well as data recaps and Asia-Pacific earnings reports.